This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
We have a schus this morning. We have a special guest who's coming to join us for a couple of days of Chizuk, Elul, before Rosh Hashanah, to give the Olam here something extra. Rabbi Glatstein is a Rav in New York and a Maggid Shir for the world. People around the world listen to his Shiurim regularly, have his Sforim. You've heard things from me, I've said to you and I've shared with you before that have been from Rabbi Glatstein's Sforim. Those of you remember over the years, Rabbi Fogan used to give a Shir at night Seder every week from Rabbi Glatstein's notes. Before he was well known, he was on to his Shiurim and taught the Olam here literally every week. So we have a strong connection and we have a strong shaykhus, and it's our covenant to be able to hear from him this morning.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Holzer, for the warm introduction. It's a great zechus for me to be here in Yesodei Hatorah, in Chodesh Elul. You know, the most important location to be in the month of Elul is in the Beis HaMedrash, is in a Yeshiva. The beginning of the Parsha talks about when you go out to war against your enemy. And the Arachaim HaKadosh, quoting really the Arizal, says that this war is referring to the war against the Yahara. And even though we're always fighting the Yahara, there's 1 month a year where this battle intensifies. Because the Pasuk says, Yarach Yomim, a month of days. And the Arizal says, what month is this referring to? What month do we have this really important battle with the Yahara? The Arizal says it's referring to Elul. So the opening of this week's Parsha speaks about the month of Elul. And what are you supposed to do in the month of Elul? It says, V'yashva b'veisecha. The Targum says, V'yashva b'veisecha refers to the Beis HaMedrash. So here we are. It's Chodesh Elul. We're in the most important month. We're in the Beis HaMedrash. And we're ready for battle. We're ready for war. We're fighting the Yahara. And I want to challenge you with a very interesting question and a very powerful question. Perhaps you're familiar with the teaching of Tana D'Velio. Tana D'Velio says, Chayiv Adam Loimar, a person is obligated to say, Masai Yagiu Masai, Lamasai Avoisai, Avraham, Yitzchak, V'Yakov. When will my actions reach the levels of my forefathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Okay, now, Tana D'Velio doesn't say, I have a suggestion for you. Tana D'Velio doesn't say, I have a good idea for you. Tana D'Velio says, you're obligated to. Obligated is a strong word. You know that. Chazal, often, when they tell us something we have to do, they don't use the word you're obligated. They'll say, I'll give you an example. There's a mitzvah to be Maver Sedra, to read the Psukim twice and the Targum once. Now, sometimes boys start doing it when they're bar mitzvah, sometimes older. If you haven't started yet, it's a time to think about starting, if you're able to do it the whole thing. I don't know how they do it and at what age. If you haven't started yet and it seems too much, well, maybe start doing it once and then maybe next year twice. There's a mitzvah being Maver Sedra. Okay? When the Gemara talks about being Maver Sedra, what does the Gemara say? Does the Gemara say, you have to read the Pasuk twice and the Targum once? The Gemara doesn't say you have to. The Gemara says, La'olam yisader adam parshiyos l'tzibur. A person should try to finish the Parsha with the tzibur. It doesn't say you have to. So we would read the Gemara and we would think, maybe this is a suggestion. No, look in the Torah. The Torah says, tzarich, you need to. If you read the Torah, you would think, okay, I need to, but am I obligated? The Shulchan Aruch says, chayiv. So what happened? What happened is when the Gemara says the word la'olam, it means you're obligated to. When Chazal say you should try to do something, it means you have to do it. So imagine if Chazal say you have to do something. Imagine how important it must be. Chazal say you have to say to yourself, when will my actions reach the actions of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? So I have one simple question for you. How do Chazal know you have to say this? How do Chazal know you need to say, when you wake up in the morning, you can't say, well, I daven pretty good, and I learned pretty good, so I'm good. No, you can't say that. Chazal say, don't even ask yourself, when am I going to be like Rav Moshe Feinstein? Don't even ask yourself, when am I going to be like the Malbim? Don't even ask yourself, when am I going to be like the Vilna Gaon? Or like Rashi, or like the Rambam, or like an Amoira, or like a Tana. You're obligated to ask yourself, when am I going to be like Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Where did Chazal get that from? It's a chayk, it's like the Parah Aduma, that Hashem whispered in Moshe Rabbeinu's ear. Tell every Yid that they should say to themselves, Masai Yagiu Masai Lamasai Avoisai Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov. I always wondered about that. Where did Chazal get this from? I want to share with you a very interesting teaching of Rabbeinu Yonah. Before I tell you what Rabbeinu Yonah says in the Shari Tshuva, I'm going to ask you a little trivia question. You better know the answer to it. In Chodesh Elul, we have a minhag. We do something different after davening. What do? LeDavid. That's true. But not everyone says LeDavid. Most Yidden say LeDavid. But it's not widespread all over Klal Yisrael to say LeDavid. But what else do we do at the end of davening? We blow the shofar. Okay. Are you allowed to, when they blow the shofar, go like this? I don't want to hear the shofar. Of course not. The minhag is you got to blow the shofar, so you have to listen to the shofar. So that means the shofar is telling you something. What does the shofar say? What's it saying? What does the shofar say? So Rabbi Yisrael Salanter says, the shofar says one thing. The shofar says to learn Musar. What's Musar? Musar is a certain type of learning where you focus on how you could improve yourself in your Shamayim, in your Midas, in your Avodas Hashem. Anybody ever hear of some Musar Svarim? Some names of some Musar Svarim?
Yeah.
What do you say? Mesil Sisharim. Good. Ding, ding, ding. That's the best answer. Reb Chaim Volozhiner says, Kol Sevrei Musar Kodesh, Mesil Sisharim, Kodesh Kadashim. What else? Chavis Havavos. The Chassam Sofer said, Chassam Sofer started every single shiur with 15 minutes of Chavis Havavos. He said any day he didn't teach Musar, he felt a cooling off in his Avodas Hashem. The shofar says learn Musar, which means that if you just learn Torah, and you daven, and you keep all the halachos, but you don't learn Musar, then you didn't hear shofar. You missed the shofar. Anyway, one of the Sifrei Musar is Shari Tshuva. And I want to share with you something that the Shari Tshuva says, and it's a very amazing insight that we're going to glean from the Shari Tshuva. There are many levels of mitzvahs in the Torah. Some mitzvahs, if you don't fulfill them, there's nothing Beis Din could do. Some mitzvahs, if you don't fulfill them, there's punishment. Some mitzvahs, there's severe punishment. Let's start from the most severe to the most lenient. So there's some averos, if somebody violates and they're warned, there could be capital punishment. If two witnesses come and they warn someone not to be Mechalo Shabbos, and the person's Mechalo Shabbos, Beis Din has the ability to give capital punishment. There's some averos, if some violate, then there could be something Misa B'dei Shamayim. Some averos, you could get Malkus for. Anybody know what averos could Beis Din give Malkus for? What do you need? A loisase. Any loisase? Let's say somebody speaks Lashon Hara. Will they get Malkus? No. You need Lav, Sheyesh Boy, Maisa. Lav Sheyesh Boy. Then you have something called Lav, Shein Boy Maisa. Lav Shein Boy Maisa. There's no Einshim for. And then there's Mitzvah Saseh. Mitzvah Saseh, Beis Din can't even enforce really. There's nothing Beis Din could do. Okay? So Rabbi Yonah says, you might think that a Mitzvah Saseh is a minor thing. After all, there's nothing Beis Din could do to punish or to enforce. But on the other hand, Rabbeinu Yonah says, Even though asay is the most lenient, in a certain sense, it's the most important. Listen to the words of Rabbeinu Yoina. Says Rabbeinu Yoina, Ki hamalois ha'elyonos nimsuru lanu b'mitzvahs asay. The greatest avenues of avodas Hashem were given to Klal Yisrael with the mitzvahs asay. Okay? And Rabbeinu Yoina lists what he calls malois ha'elyonos. Let me explain what malos ha'elyonos are. We're not talking about one specific mitzvah, like tzitzis. Tzitzis is just a ma'aseh mitzvah. Tefillin is just a ma'aseh mitzvah. Daled minim is just a ma'aseh mitzvah. What we're talking about here are realms of avodas Hashem. I'll give you a few examples. Avas Hashem, Yiras Hashem, Bitachon. So you get the drift over here? We're not talking about specific ma'aseh mitzvahs. We're talking about areas of avodas Hashem. And I want to ask you a very interesting question. Anybody know what's the most important mitzvah in the Torah? What's the greatest mitzvah in the Torah? Eating gefilte fish. No. What's the most important mitzvah in the Torah? Talmud Torah. The Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. You knew the answer, but you're being polite. Okay. What's the second most important mitzvah in the Torah? Say second most important mitzvah in the Torah? Where would it say? Doesn't it say in Pirkei Avos, Hevezar b'mitzvah kala kibachamura she'enat yodea matan schar shemitzvahs? We don't know the hierarchy of mitzvahs. Nevertheless, the Chafetz Chaim writes in many places, he brings a proof from about 10 different Gemaras in Shas, that there are two most important mitzvahs in the Torah. The Gemara in Shabbos says, I believe on Daf Kuf Daled, the Gemara in Shabbos says that children came into the Beis HaMedrash and they taught chidushim that since the time of Yeshua ben Nun, they never heard such beautiful chidushim. You know what the chidush was? Aleph Beis Gimel Daled. Aleph Beis, Aleph Bina. Gimel Daled, Gimel Dalim. Aleph Beis means learn Torah. Gimel Daled means do chesed. Says the Chafetz Chaim, if these two mitzvahs are merumas in the beginning of the Aleph Beis, they must be the two most important mitzvahs in the Torah. And indeed, the Chafetz Chaim writes, the two most important mitzvahs, like the meat and potatoes of Klal Yisrael. The meat and potatoes. The most important avenues of Avodas Hashem is Talmud Torah and Gemilas Chasadim. The Chafetz Chaim quotes about more than a half a dozen Gemaras in Shas that the Iker Schar comes to a Jew through Talmud Torah and Gemilas Chasadim. Okay, got that? Now, when Rabbeinu Yoina lists the Mailos Ha'elyonos that are given with the mitzvah saseh, I'm assuming he's listing it in order of importance. And indeed, mitzvah number 2 is Malos Talmud Torah. Mitzvah number 3 is Malos Leches Bedarche Hashem, which is a mitzvah of chesed. So it's interesting, Rabbeinu Yoina lists Talmud Torah as 2, and he lists chesed as 3. So probably it would be very interesting to study what is the first mitzvah saseh that Rabbeinu Yoina speaks about, because that's probably a really important one. You ready for this? Says Rabbeinu Yoina, the very first Mailo Ha'elyono, which is given the mitzvah saseh, is a pasuk in Parshas Nitzavim. The pasuk says, "Ubacharta b'chayim," you should choose life. Did anyone even ever hear of that mitzvah? Huh? You should choose life? Which mitzvah is that? Was I absent in first grade when that mitzvah was taught? What mitzvah is to choose life? I know about Talmud Torah. I know about Gemilas Chasadim. I know about Yiras Shamayim. I know about Bitachon. I know about Avas Hashem. But what is Bacharta B'chayim? The Rambam doesn't even list Ubacharta B'chayim as a mitzvah in the Torah. It's a concept. By the way, do you know what the concept of Bechira is? I was giving a shiur for senior citizens. And there was a guy there, he went to Yeshiva. He never knew about Bechira. So I was saying, in Yiddishkeit we believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu controls everything that happens to us. I just, I came from a different planet. You know how I got here? I came from a planet it's in this galaxy, in the Milky Way. It's called New York. And I flew all the way to Australia. And I never had any issues with my teeth. I got here, all of a sudden I have a throbbing toothache. So of course, that's hashgacha. The hashgacha is that for the last many years of my life, I never had an issue. All of a sudden I come to Australia, my tooth hurts. It's hashgacha pratis. Hashem controls everything in the world. But you know that there's something in this world Hashem doesn't control? There's one thing in this world Hashem doesn't control. And that is what you do. What you do, the choices you make, whether you decide to learn or not to learn, how to daven, how to act, how to speak to someone, Hashem doesn't control that. Only you control that. That's called bechira. And I remember this man said, what? He didn't believe it. He says, that's kfira to say that Hashem doesn't control what we do. And I said, Rabbi Yud, it's a good thing you came to learn today, because if you don't believe that we have control what we do, that's kafira. That's one of the Yesodei of Yiddishkeit. We control what we do. But Rabbeinu Yoina learns, no, bechira is a mitzvah. Not only is it a mitzvah, it's the first mitzvah. It goes ahead of Talmud Torah. It goes ahead of Gemilas Chasadim. So what is this mitzvah bechira? And I've always been wondering about it. And you could look in many different editions of Shari Tshuva, and many mashgichim ask this question: what does Rabbeinu Yoina mean with the mitzvah bechira? And I've seen many answers over the years, and I was never satisfied. Until Hashem sent me another sefer of Rabbeinu Yoina called Shari HaAvodah. Rabbeinu Yoina wrote Shari Tshuva, and he wrote a sefer Shari HaAvodah. And at the very end of Shari HaAvodah, Rabbeinu Yoina himself speaks about the mitzvah bechira, and it was very eye-opening for me. But before I share that with you, I want to share with you another interesting question. So, let's say we spoke about the Chafetz Chaim, the Malbim, the Vilna Gaon, the Chassam Sofer. What do we call them? What era did they live in? Achronim. And how about Rashi and the Rashba and the Ran and the Rif? And how about Rav Sadia Gaon? Okay. And Ravina Rav Ashi, Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish? And Rabbi Meir? Tana. And Yeshaya? Very good. So he didn't live 50 years ago in Poland. Yeshaya was a Navi, right? They have a good education over here. Baruch Hashem. Who's greater, Rishonim or Achronim? Rishonim. Who's greater, Tanam or Amaram? Can a Rishon argue on Rish Lakish? Why not? A Rishon can't argue on Amira. Why not? What? It's not so pashut. Why? The Kesef Mishnah says it must have been that the Chachmei Hashas gathered together and came to a consensus that we're going to seal the Gemara, and it's a closed book. Nobody could change it. Nobody could argue on it. But in general, it's true. There's something called Yeridas Hadoros. As the generations descend, we get less and less. So Rishonim are greater than Achronim, Gaonim were greater than Rishonim, Amarim were greater than Gaonim, and so on and so forth. So here's the difficult question. Could somebody please tell me, why is a Rishon greater than Achron? What is it about them? How was Rashi greater than the Chassam Sofer? How was Ravina Rav Ashi greater than Gaonim? What is it about earlier generations that they're greater than later generations? What's greater about them? Were they smarter? Is it that they're smarter? Is it that they have more Kedusha? They have more Emunah? You ever think about this? What is greater about earlier generations than later generations? They're closer to Har Sinai. So the good, right, that's an easy answer. They're closer to Har Sinai, but it's true. It's true. They're closer to Har Sinai. So it's like, there's a transmission of Torah. So if I take a book and I photocopy it, and then I photocopy the photocopy, and then I photocopy the photocopy of the photocopy, the original book is going to be clearer than the photocopy of the photocopy of the photocopy. So as the Torah is transmitted, it's going to be not on the same level as it originally was. Rabbi Yerucham Levavitz asked this question. Why were earlier generations greater than later generations? And he says something very interesting. Says Rabbi Yerucham Levavitz, what makes people successful in general, not in the world of Ruchnias, let's say in the business world or in any area in life? What is it about people who are successful? Obviously, there are always exceptions and there are always circumstances. But in general, what is it about people who become successful at what they do? Are they smarter than other people? Nope, not necessarily. Are they more talented than other people? No, doesn't have to be. So what is it? Rabbi Yerucham says that there's a very interesting word that is used as the key ingredient that is a common denominator among all those who are successful in their respective fields, and that is, let's see if you know the meaning of this word, yazama. Yazama. You ever hear this word? Yazama. Ambition. They have a dream. They have a drive. They have an aspiration to be successful. When they wake up in the morning, they're thinking about, they're dreaming about when they're going to reach the summit of success. And they have such a strong aspiration and dream and drive to reach success. That is the key ingredient in being successful in any particular field. Says Rabbi Yerucham, what makes a Rishon greater than an Achron is the Rishonim had more of an aspiration to reach Gadlus. So when Rashi would wake up in the morning, Rashi would say, when am I going to be like Avraham Avinu? When am I going to be like Yitzchak? When am I going to be like Yaakov? You know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu loved David HaMelech. Why did Hashem love David HaMelech so much? I want Hashem to love me the way He loved David HaMelech. Rishonim had more of an aspiration for Gadlus than Achronim did. And the Nevi'im had even a greater aspiration. When am I going to come close to Hashem that Hashem's going to speak to me? The key ingredient in being successful in Ruchnius is a drive and an aspiration and a yearning to reach success. Says Rabbi Yerucham, this is not a suggestion, this is not a good idea, this is an obligation. Where does this obligation come from? Chayiv Adam Loimar Masai Yagiu Masai Lamasai Avoisai Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov. It's an obligation, it's a chiyuv. It is, in a certain sense, the most important aspect of Avodas Hashem. So, if I were to ask you, okay, I'm a young man going to Yeshiva, and I want to be successful in my learning. What's the first thing I need to do? So until today, you thought the first thing I need to do is I need to learn, right? No, that's not the first step. The first step is you have to open up your Gemara. But even before you open up your Gemara, while your Gemara is closed, you need to take your Gemara and say, this year I'm learning Masechta Bava Metzia. What are you learning? Hamafkid? Hamafkid? I want to know the whole Masechta. One day I want to know this whole Masechta. I want to know with Rashi. I want to know with Tosfos. I want to know with the Marsha. I want to know with the Rush and the Ran. And then you need to look at the shelf and look at the Shas and say, one day I want to be familiar with the Shas. I want to know the Chumash with Rashi and the Ramban and Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. And you're going to look up the wall, you'll see a picture of a Gadol B'Yisrael. One day I want to be close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu like him. That's the first step. Then you could start learning. But if you don't know what you want to try to achieve, then you can't even begin. That's the Chiyav. Chayiv Adam Loimar. Masai Yagiu Masai, Lamasai Avoisai, Avraham, Yitzchak, V'Yakov. So, I was still wondering, how do Chazal know you need to say this? From where do Chazal derive that there's such a concept? I mean, you could read the whole Chumash. It talks about you have to wear tzitzis, you have to wear tefillin, you have to learn, you have to do chesed. Where does it say, I need to have aspirations to be like the big tzaddikim? Where do they get this from? So one day I was learning a sefer called Sharei Ha'avoda of Rabbeinu Yonah. And in Perek Mem Tes, Rabbeinu Yonah writes something very amazing. Rabbeinu Yonah says, "Ubechol yom v'yom," every single day, you need to strengthen yourself and rise up from one midah to the next, from one madrega to the next, and yearn and desire to reach levels that you can't even reach. Now, timeout. We're taking a timeout. You know what a timeout is in Australia? They know what it is. They'll figure it out. Break. Now, this could be, and you have to be very balanced. Sometimes a person thinks to himself, I want to be like Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and they're sitting there, and right now they're on the level that they could learn for 15 minutes straight and not anymore. And they're thinking, I want to be like Reb Chaim Kanievsky, so I want to learn 9 hours straight. And then they're going to force themselves to learn 16 minutes and 17 minutes. And it's too much pressure. And it's not comfortable. And then you just get down on yourself. And you don't feel good. And sometimes it can make you feel a little sad. And then you say, forget the whole thing. No. See, now you have to be able to have the right balance. Because on the one hand, you have to dream for the stars. But on the other hand, you also have to realize you're not going to reach the stars in one day. Right now, you could learn 15 minutes straight. So your goal is, eventually I'm going to reach Reb Chaim Kanievsky with Hashem's help. And today I'm going to add 1 more minute onto my ability. You have to take very small steps. And whatever level you're on, always be besimcha that Hashem gave you the zechus to be on this level. Never get down that you're not reaching the stars yet. It takes a long time. It takes many weeks and many months and many years. And I heard from my great Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Henoch Leibowitz, Zechatzak Bracha, that when it comes to Ruchnius, Hashem created us that we could dream of the greatest heights and at the same time be sameach b'chalkayat. And by the world of Gashmias, it doesn't work that way. If you want to be a billionaire, you're not going to be happy if you're not a billionaire. Either you could shoot for the stars, or you could be happy with what you have, but it's very hard, or if not impossible, to have both. When it comes to Ruchnias, you shoot for the stars, but you never get down on yourself. Be besimcha that today you're able to do the amount that you're able to do. But Rabbeinu Yonah says that always desire higher levels and greater madregos. And then says Rabbeinu Yonah, Ve'al ha'bechira bilvad yikabel sachar. If you want to reach higher levels, you'll be rewarded as if you did it. Now, this is a great thing. That means I could walk into Yeshiva, and right now, how many blat do I know well that I could say over Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos, Shakla, V'Tarya? None. Maybe I don't know any. Maybe I only know a few lines of Gemara. But if I walk into the Yeshiva and say, I look at the Shas and say, I want to know the whole Shas, Hashem rewards you as if you know the whole Shas. You know why? Because Hashem looks at you based on what you want. If you're doing your best. Says Rabbeinu Yonah, you will be rewarded just for Bechira. Ki ha-Bechira mitzvahs aseh. Choosing is a mitzvah aseh. You understand what the mitzvah of choosing is? The mitzvah of choosing is, what would I want? What would I like? You want to be like Avram Avinu? You'll be rewarded in Shemaim like your Avram Avinu. You hear that? So when you wake up in the morning, you wash Negel Vaser, you say Moeda'ani, and you say, Rebbeinu Shalom, I want to be like Avraham. I want to be like David. Right now, I'm just like, I'm just a regular guy in Yeshiva. But I want to be like Avram Avinu. And I want to know the Torah like Rav Moshe Feinstein and Reb Chaim Kanievsky. I'm not holding there yet. You will be rewarded as if you achieved it. Listen to these words. Ki ha-bechira bilvad mitzvah saseh shenemar uvacharta b'chayim. Like it says, choose life. Choose life means, we always think the mitzvahs are what we do. It's not relevant what we want to do. No, not only is it relevant, we're commanded to have aspirations to reach the highest heights. Now, let's come back to the other Rabbeinu Yonah and Shari Tshuva. Mitzvah number 2, who remembers, is what? Mitzvah number 2 in the list of Rabbeinu Yoina was Talmud Torah. Mitzvah number 3 was what? Milas Chesed. And mitzvah number 1, Uvacharta b'chayim, choose life, aspiring for greatness, shooting for greatness. That's the first mitzvah in the list of Rabbeinu Yoina. So it comes out, before you fulfill the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, before you fulfill the mitzvah of Gemilas Chasadim, the very first thing, and the most basic mitzvah, and in a certain sense the most important mitzvah, is the mitzvah of aspiring for greatness. And you know what? The good news is, you're all young, and you're starting out, and you have the great zechus to be in yeshiva, and you're in a path that Chazal teach us, that if somebody sticks with it, doesn't happen tomorrow, doesn't happen the next day, it's a whole lifetime. But if a person sticks with it, the Rebbeinu Shem will give us all great siyata d'shmaya. But that's provided that we really want it and we really yearn for it. So somebody came to Reb Chaim Kanievsky and he said, Reb Chaim Kanievsky, I would like a bracha, I want to be a Talmud Chacham. So Reb Chaim Kanievsky said, sorry, I can't help you with that one. What do you want from me? If you want to be a Talmud Chacham, you have to learn. You can't get a bracha to be a Talmud Chacham. Nobody ever became a Talmud Chacham because they got a bracha. Well, you're going to get a bracha, and you're going to sit there with the Gemara closed, and somehow magically you're going to become a Talmud Chacham because someone gave you a bracha. Bracha is not going to do anything for you to become a Talmud Chacham. Reb Chaim said, you have to want to become a Talmud Chacham. So the kid was very smart. He asked Reb Chaim, give me a bracha, I should want to become a Talmud Chacham. So Reb Chaim said, I can't help you there either. Only you could want to become a Talmud Chacham. The want has to come from you. So the kid was really smart. He said, Reb Chaim, okay, right now I don't want to become a Talmud Chacham. Give me a bracha, I should want to become a Talmud Chacham. Reb Chaim said, that I could give you a bracha for. I can't give you a bracha that you should want to be a Talmud Chacham. That has to come from your own heart. But I should give you a bracha that you should desire to want the right thing. And that is my humble bracha to you. Hashem should be mevarich all of us, that our desire in life should be that we should want to ascend to the greatest heights in Ruchnias, in Talmud Torah, in Yiras Shamayim, in Tikkun HaMidos, and in all aspects of Avodas Hashem. Should all be matzliach, and I wish you all a ksiva chsima tova. Thank you very much.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.